This is Janine Young of the Smithers Market Reports publishing team. Today we are talking with Arthur Mayer, the author of the Smithers Market Report, The Future of Last Mile Fleet Tires to 2030. Art is a tire industry expert with more than a decade of experience in research and data development. He has done in-depth projects on many aspects of the tire industry, including the global tire market, OTR tires, and new tire technologies. Let's start by talking about why this segment of the tire industry is so interesting and important.
Well, this is an area I've kind of looked at tangentially in the past. For example, looking at areas like fleet tires and e-commerce sector as it relates to tires. This is really an area in which a lot of trends are converging. And so it's a growing segment of the tire industry as a whole, but also of fleet tires. So really driven by really broad shifts generally in economic activity and demographics already before COVID-19, but then it got a really big boost from a lot of people staying at home and not shopping. Really big boosts to e-commerce, to food orders. I view it kind of as a convergence of innovations that are beginning to not just result in a growing market, but new vehicles and new kinds of tires and new tire programs around last mile delivery.
The data developed for this report kind of revealed a really strong growth rate. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. The growth rate we're anticipating is in value terms in excess of 12%, which is quite remarkable. This is over the 2025 to 2030 period. And this compares very favorably to commercial tires in general and fleet tires as well. So the last mile delivery component is really a major driver in terms of volume and value growth. I'd say, easily we're looking at two to three times the growth rate you'd be seeing outside of this segment.
And what overall arching trends are supporting this growth? Is this a vehicle trend, or is this a market trend, or is it both?
It's really both, because the market and consumer behavior is shifting very much towards increasing adoption of e-commerce, and it's been around for a while and got an extra boost at the time of COVID, but that's proven to be sustainable, and more companies are offering shipping, and in more and more vehicles are being designed specifically for this purpose, and tires have followed along with more companies, not just making EV tires or low rolling resistance tires, but ones that are specially adapted to the kinds of vehicles typically used in last mile delivery.
So what are those tire requirements that go beyond low rolling resistance?
Well, a lot of them have to do with the durability of these tires, which are seeing a little more severe service than a lot of regular truck tires have been in the past. And by that I mean they're in urban environments where there's scarce parking. There's a lot of curbing of the tires. There's a lot of potholes, and also a lot of these delivery services that have arisen are using relatively untrained drivers that don't have commercial driver's licenses. So they tend to be a little more likely to punish the tires and not to be as careful with them. And that's very important, because the fleet company is trying to kind of preserve the asset, the casing, for possibly multiple retreadings. So the asset life is very important. durability, sidewall strength.
What about growth of technologies related to these tires, like connected tires, sensors, tire pressure management systems? Is this giving a boost to these other adjacent technologies?
Yeah, and I'd say the advent of artificial intelligence-based vehicle scanning, which includes tires, not but also auto body, et cetera. Um, you've got the company UVI, for example, out of Israel. They make systems that, whether you're driving into a dealership or a fleet facility, can do a pretty complete AI-based vehicle diagnostic. So there have been a lot of stories lately about Amazon fleet facilities which are installing these,
Mhm.
and basically, when you're returning to home base, you're getting a daily read on the tire life and the tread depth and any kind of sidewall or wheel damage. So this is really big. I view these as very symbiotic. And in the meantime, you're seeing both tire manufacturers like Continental, for example, and then sensor companies like Sensata and Cerebrum sensor technologies are coming out with sensors that make it possible to monitor the tires in real time, pressure, temperature, and tread depth as well for predictive maintenance purposes.
So you go into these technologies in your report then?
Yeah, I do look at the ancillary technologies that are benefiting from the fleet trend and last mile fleet trends. Because these fleet tires kind of require management as an asset, companies are coming out with these extra programs and extra technologies to enable tires as a service offerings. Um, and I really think technology and active tire management are really key to those offerings. And last mile is very well suited to it.
Can you talk about expectations for units this year and then you think that'll be over the forecast period to 2030?
Sure. Right now, on a global basis, we're looking at about 215 million units. A lot of that, I'll emphasize that we did take a broad look at last mile, so we're not just looking at that being tires for box trucks and sprinter vans. Those are also for light vehicles, such as SUVs or pickups that are used in last mile delivery settings, as well as scooters and motorcycles. So in unit terms, a lot of the market is comprised of those smaller vehicle tires. Based on the growth that we're seeing, we anticipate this number uh, actually getting way up to 365 million units in 2030. It's just a little bit slower than the value growth, but still very considerable, and does imply a great deal of tires being sold and managed and ultimately disposed of. That's another area where tire companies can really help these fleets.
So
You know,
the passenger vehicles, what are there particular sizes that you're seeing being used for these vehicles in the last mile delivery fleets?
yeah, generally it's smaller because of urban congestion. The smaller vehicles tend to be favored in a lot of these situations. And when you're looking at the box trucks and sprinter vans, maybe your smallest tire there is a 17.5 inch. For the light vehicles and passenger vehicles, definitely 17 inches and below uh, is is uh, is still a growth area. And maybe it's not in the general performance tire market, but it is for the fleet vehicles. And also, a lot of these sizes are applicable to the motorcycles and scooters, getting down into the 16, 15s, even 14s. A lot of this has to do with competition from even smaller tires outside of the scope of this project, and that is like e-bikes, for example. Those are really making inroads on a lot of the urban deliveries when it comes to very small, tight spaces.
Is there anything particular in the regulatory environment that is affecting last mile fleet tires?
Well, there are the regulations in general which are promoting the uptake of EVs. Um, there's increasing pressure on emissions reductions, both from affecting vehicle manufacturers and tire manufacturers. And I think a lot of the fleets themselves are also trying to reduce their emissions. So they're definitely continuing to look at tires which have the lowest possible rolling resistance that are EV appropriate. And for example, the tire labeling you see in Europe and other markets is also promoting this trend. There may be regulations that encourage recycling and proper disposal of tires once they're no longer needed. So some of this is the concern of tire companies and distributors that will be helping the fleets, but I think the fleets themselves are taking this into account, looking at the tire as an asset to manage.
Okay, so you talked about above average growth. Is there anything that's struggling in the market? Is there anything that's being impeded?
Well, well, first of all the segments here are growing quickly, except maybe for the very largest tires. You do have some challenges from innovative mobility, such as e-bikes. Those aren't included in the scope of my report, but I took a look at them, and they appear to be making inroads in urban settings, particularly in places like Europe, where they've done studies showing that they're much more efficient in terms of time spent getting their deliveries done and emissions generated. So e-bikes and autonomous drone deliveries, I think, are becoming much more important. I don't think they're really making a big dent in LMD fleet tire growth at this time. I think you still have fantastic double-digit growth opportunities with the conventional road transportation tires, particularly on the motorcycle side, but even the core last mile delivery tires we read the most about on the vans. They're still showing some very solid growth.
Is there anything else that you would like to mention that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, I did briefly touch on retreading, but in the truck segment, that's really a key part, and it implies actually a much larger market out there for retreaded tires. We're looking at the data in my report at the sales of new tires, new replacement tires, in
Okay.
addition to OE. But you might have a second or third set for a lot of these types of vehicles if the tires are managed properly. And I think that's where the fleet companies are really going to be looking to tire distributors and tire manufacturers to provide the services and the technologies to make that economical.
That concludes our discussion with Art Mayer, the author of the Smithers Produced Market Report, The Future of Last Mile Fleet Tires to 2030. The report is available this spring. For more information, visit smithers.com.